What's going on, guys? Cyn for the win here, and we got a special video for you today. We are going to be putting to the test something that has been debated for the last few years in NHL games and is mentioned in my comments. Something that I didn't really think worked, and that is, do your team strategies affect the simulation engine? So we're going to be putting that to the test here, and we're going to be pretty much going polar opposites. So for this first one, we're going pure offense. Most aggressive forecheck in the offensive zone, neutral zone, all the way up, trap versus forecheck, full attack offensive pressure, high pressure defensive pressure. The defensive strategy, stagger, that doesn't really matter. Large box, attacking the puck carrier, power play, overload, carry more. None of this stuff really matters, but I said it, for most of the aggressive things here. Control breakout and power play breakout. Less important, but the quick breakout, definitely. The leave zone early. Aggressive on the 3-on-3s. Those are the main things. And when it comes to the forward lines, I did crank up shooting a little bit, but you want them to be able to, pass and cycle a bit and look for good opportunities and not just, throw the puck on the net all the time. But I did crank all of them up a little bit for each of the shot things. One tick for both the first and second line set to overload. The third line set to behind the net, 2 ticks of increase. And the fourth line, 1 below the max for cycle and shoot. Now, the most important part is the defensive pairings. Move them up all the way to pinching. Made them shoot about, the midpoint, all of them. But all of them holding, trying to pinch instead of holding a line. So these are going to be the strategies that we go with to try to test out offense. And how much different is this going to be versus when we go into a full trap setup. So we're going to do an entire season of simming, check out the numbers at the end of the season for each one, and really try to get an idea as if such big changes affect the simulation. Or at least, so that you can kind of get an idea. Okay, do your edit strategies actually work with the simulation? So we can put that controversy to rest here, hopefully at the end of this video. So that's what we're going to be going with. Settings, well, I have injuries off. Pretty much everything is off. No morale, none of that. I don't want the team, faltering in any way, shape, or form. Basically going to go with the best lines here throughout everything. And just do exactly what the computer would do and see what the simulation engine is going to look like here. And I think the Lightning are a really good team to do this with. They're obviously, the best team in the NHL. They have a goalie who always seems to sim very well, and a pretty stacked team overall, offensively, defensively, everything. They're pretty damn good in every single sense of the word. So we're going to be trying that out and see how this goes. So let's get this first year simulating done and see what the stats are, and we'll kind of have a control group from there. So I will see you guys in a little bit.
3 hours later.
All right, so we made it to the end of the season. 47, 29, and 6 was the record. And let's check it out. Let's see what these stats are like for a full offensive type team. Goals for per game, 3.12, top in the division. Goals against, 2.52, which is actually one of the better ones in the division. I'd say second, or third, if you count there's 2 people tied and ahead of them. Power play percentage is at 23%. Penalty kill at 81.5. That really doesn't matter. The most thing that we wanted to look at was the goals for and goals against. So the ratio is pretty good. You maybe would hope to see more goals for, but it's not too bad. Not at all. Goals against being up there is good, but you got to kind of compare it to the rest of the league. Like, you'd think we'd be allowing more, more goals against than most. 5th in the division, even with all of those, even with everything committed to playing offense, defense, pinching, full attack, aggressive ass defense, like just everything gearing towards getting possession of the puck. So very interesting. All right, you know what? That wasn't too bad, but now we got to try it on the other flip side. We're gonna get everything down, and I might even change everything to like dumping too, just to see if that really affects them. Because if they're dumping all the time, then going back into the trap, they shouldn't have possession as much. They shouldn't score as much. And we'll see about the goals against, though. But maybe goals for is the main stat that we're going to look at here, I think. Just really to see how much that the strategies affect the sim. So I'm gonna load back out, reload the initial save, and change the strategies, and I'll see you guys then. All right, here we are, reloaded back in, switching all the settings to everything passive. So this is the most passive forecheck in the offensive zone, the neutral zone trap, the 1-3-1, which is the most passive neutral zone play. Going to the trap at all times, offensive pressure, defend lead, will not take any chances, and we're going to protect the net. Still going to leave it on staggered defensive strategy just because it gives them more freedom to move up and down and things like that. Passive box for the penalty kill. Power play, still going to keep it on overload, but moving it all the way to dump. These ones doesn't make it... I kind of changed into what I kind of seemed like what weren't as aggressive and things like that. Mostly quick breakout. No longer leave the zone early. But this one's the most important for overtimes. Passive 3-on-3. More defensive. For all the forward stuff, I put them all to dump it in at all times. So dumping it in, then they draw it back into the trap. So that's kind of what we're going for. Defensive, all of them are going to hold the line. No pinching, no nothing. We're really going to see if this changes that much. So we remembered the stats. It was 3.11 goals for per game, 2.25 goals against per game. Now, now goals against might be pretty bad. If you're on defense the entire time, eventually the other team's going to score. Maybe they score more often, but the main stat we want to look at is that goals for per game. I think that's going to be the hugest tell is if whether or not these strategies will affect the simulation engine. So same thing, same line, same everything. Let's get going here. We'll see at the end of this what happens. Then I might do another one on the default settings as well to see if there's a happy middle ground. But let's see what the simulation engine has in store for a pure defensive strategy. All right, so here we are. Season has ended once again. 49, 22, and 11. Actually, a better record. So, but mainly, here's the main thing. We got to check what the heck our team did. So, it's pretty much identical. The change from goals for is 0.02. The change in goals against actually went up 0.04. Power play percentage about the same. Penalty kill near the same. It's not looking too good. It's really not looking too good. It doesn't seem like strategies affect anything. You would think that we'd have much less goals for with the strategies set to the way they are. Full trap at all times, passive on defense, passive on offense. Everyone's dumping the puck in. So, as of right now, it doesn't look too good for the fact that changing strategies will affect the simulation in franchise mode. I mean, it's basically identical. Which, actually, I'm pretty impressed. I was expecting it to be, like, way different, but not in, like, a good way. Just completely weird because EA Sim. But you gotta give credit. It's freaking identical. These two sims. Other teams not so much, but it's hard really to make any sort of argument that changing strategies affects the sim in any way. Goals for is about the same, goals against is about the same. And yeah, I mean, almost everything is near identical. Power play and penalty kill are both off by like 1% about. Maybe like 1.5. But goals for and goals against, that's such a minuscule difference that I can't... How can you say that changes? It's an entire year. It's an entire year of full offense versus an entire year of full defense in your team strategies. And there's no difference. So I think, in my opinion, it is pretty safe to say that with such drastic change, those are two very drastic differences of play style. full trap with you're dumping the puck in and always dropping back. You're not trying to get it, versus the other one where you're always trying to get the puck and you're always trying to create offense, and your defense are only thinking about offense at the same time. It's just, to me, this just seems like editing strategies for franchise mode just doesn't do a thing. Maybe there's not enough. Maybe you need to run it like a bunch more times, but with such drastic, like I said, such drastic changes and pretty much no real difference between the two, which you would think you would see at least a pretty sizable difference. Not like night and day where, but at least like a couple points of change, but it's only a .04 change is the biggest one. And that was on defense. And you'd think that one would actually be better, but it was not. So, that's hard to say. That is very hard to say. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do one more sim, and it's gonna be just the default settings to see if anything's different, or if they sim very, very similar. If they sim pretty similar, I think it's safe to put everything to bed. And yeah. And pretty much say that editing strategies does nothing for the franchise mode sim. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do one more here, and then we'll kind of be able to put this this to bed here. All right, so here we are back at the beginning. Everything is default, the way this team starts off. So nothing. I'm not changing a thing. Everything is just the way this team comes basically. Everything is default. So we're gonna run the entire sim and see if it's similar to the other two. Then it's really safe to say. I think it's already safe to say that team strategies don't affect anything, especially after two huge differences in that. But we're gonna run one more just to be safe. Same settings, no injuries, no playing around, no nothing. And we're gonna run it all the way through. And if it's pretty similar to what happened last time, I think 3 different runs of 3 different things will be enough evidence to conclude that changing strategies doesn't mess with the franchise mode sim at all, so let's get started.
Do it.
Alright, so here we are, the end of the season with the default settings. Even the records are incredibly similar, but the moment of truth, let's see what the team stats look like. Are they incredibly similar? Essentially, yes. But this one, goals for were lower, goals against were lower. However, that's like that for every single team as well. It wasn't just us. So goals for are lower, goals against a lot lower than normal. That's the biggest change. But goals for, there's a 1.2 or a 0.12 difference from any of them. That's the largest difference here, I think. Wasn't the highest we had like 3.11, right? So that is the biggest difference, but it's still not that big of a difference. The biggest difference here was the goals against, but everyone else had quite a lower goals against too. League-wide, it was way lower. Remember, in the first one, we were like 5th in goals against. This one, you're 3rd. So you're around that same area, but everyone else is lower than this. When we were 5th in goals against, that would have been around here. Way the heck lower. So in this one, everyone's goals against was lower. I don't know. I really don't think that team strategies plays much of a role in the simulation engine. Did 3 different simulations, all of them very similar. Very similar. You'd think with the full defense we would have less goals for than this, but this one was more of a balanced, kind of a balanced setting, and you had less goals for than the defensive one, and better goals against than the defensive one. So if you're looking at goals against, but again, can you? Because everyone has lower goals against than either of the other two. So I think it's safe to say that team strategies don't really play much role at all in the simulation here in franchise mode. I mean, the point totals were all very similar, all around the 80s and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I mean, Stamkos had 9 more points in a completely defensive team, dumping it all the time, dropping back, not forechecking, than he had here. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say that the franchise mode simulation does not depend on team strategies whatsoever. I think it's just completely a simulation and has nothing. It has to only do with your players. I think that's all it has to do. We had the same lines every single time. No injuries, no morale, nothing. Same lines every single time, different strategies, and really the results were not that different, especially when you looked at the pure offense and pure defense. This one was the biggest change, but it was a balance between the two. And again, it still wasn't that far off. The biggest change was the goals against, and it was only like a 0.2 change. And that was it. That's the biggest shift. Goals for, the largest change was like a 0.1 something. And that's not that much. So, in conclusion here, I think it's pretty safe to say that the that's team strategies does not affect the franchise mode simulation. I'd like to thank you all for coming to my TED Talk today and add that Cyn wins. I know this was debated a few times. People telling me in my comments on some of my franchise mode to change my team strategies because it'd help my team perform better. But I don't know. This sample, is it a large enough sample size? I think so. I think it's safe to say that Cyn was right, and you're all wrong. Eat it. No, just kidding. It'd be cool. I'm gonna say it'd be really cool if your team strategies affect the way it sims, and probably should be in the game. So that's maybe something I'll get on the horn to old EA about and say like, hey, what's the use of strategies if they don't work in the simulation? It does make things easier. You don't have to, do as much. However, if you did want your guys to shoot more, you have to find guys who shoot a lot, and you can't tell them to shoot more. So I think that there should be a visible stat of a guy's bias to shooting. You always see those guys, created players always take a crap ton of shots, so I'm just wondering, what is that? What's the stat in there? I know there's multiple hidden stats, but it'd be nice to see some of them. And maybe get to adjust some of them. Because if you want to create a playmaker, I want him to be a playmaker. Maybe I don't want him to be taking 300 shots a season. I want him to actually perform like a playmaker. Get someone next to him who takes a lot of shots. So there's a lot that can be done with franchise mode to make it better. But as of right now, I think it's pretty clear. Team strategies do not affect the simulation engine whatsoever. I rest my case here. I hope you guys found this informative as well as entertaining. Remember to leave that like, especially if you want to see more content like this. Definitely leave that like, and it will inspire me to keep making a standalone videos such as this, aside from all my normal series. So, alright guys, I will see you in the next one. If watching my videos just isn't enough sin for you, be sure to go over there on Twitter and shoot me a follow, and you could even join our Discord server as well to talk with some of the other sinners out there. The links to both are in the description.